Buenos días. Good morning again. Sorry about that short wait. We are back on track, and I would like to introduce you our next exciting discussion. It's called Industries of the Future, Made in the EU. A sentence, a claim that we all like very much. Our speakers now will place a spotlight on deep technological innovations which are currently pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible and creating new markets. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome Director General for Internal Market, Industry, Entrepreneurship and SMEs of the European Commission, Kerstin Jorna. Thank you very much for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. Let's give her a round of applause, please. Welcome, Kirsten. She will be chairing the session and also presenting her speakers. So may I ask to come and join us on stage Michiel Schäfer, Esther Baiguet, Candela Sancho, and Juha Baitianen. Come and join us. Don't be shy. Thank you very much. And let's give them a round of applause too, please. Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. And it's an early hour, and thank you to my guests to be also here. Do you know why the Commission President sits at the G7 table? Not because we have an army in Europe, but because the President represents the single market, which is the biggest trading bloc in the world, and it's one of the three big economies. And we get to have a voice to shape actually global matters and planetary destiny, because we have this powerhouse called the single market. And what I'd like to discuss with my panelists today is how the single market economy works for them, because they are all in, the edge of the future technologies, and how does it work to scale up new technologies, new ideas in the single market to power the powerhouse. This is actually what you're doing. Maybe we start with a round of presentations. Juha.
Right, thank you. So I'm coming from IQM Quantum Computers, which is a leading provider of quantum computers in Finland. We are the biggest company, having 300 people in 4 European countries and Singapore and US. We have order intake about 50 million euros so far, and we have received 200 million of funding. Europe is very important for us as a market, so our domain is very much regulated. So quantum computing is kind of strategic technology. It's very important for the whole Europe, and there are a lot of export controls from US, and export is not possible to certain countries like Russia and China. So it's very important that for the purposes of technological sovereignty, we have a strong supply chain in Europe.
Esther.
Hi. My name is Esther, and I represent Novozymes. We are a global leading biotech company. We produce enzymes, microbes, proteins that enable a healthier planet and healthier lives. We are a 12 billion market cap company, 6,500 employees. We invest 13% of our revenue in innovation. And with our solutions, we enable a healthy environment. We enable detergents that allow you to wash at lower temperatures with sustainable solutions. We enable solutions that bring plant-based foods. We enable solutions that allow to replace fertilizers and chemicals from the agricultural. In every place that we are, we secretly, silently, through biology, through biotechnology, enable healthier lives. I'm delighted to be here and talk with all of you on the benefits of the single market, but at the same time, the areas that we, together, we can do better to unleash the potential of what we have and to contribute to wealth, to creation, but at the same time to a sustainable planet for all of us.
Thank you. And then we move to Candela. and to the skies.
So, thank you for the opportunity. So I'm Candela, the CEO of Detectia. So we are a young startup focusing on controlling infrastructures from space, so integrating satellite technologies and artificial intelligence. So Detectia links satellite technologies with the civil infrastructure sector, transforming the enormous volume of information that is captured by satellites into early warnings and easy-to-interpret data that support the decision-making in the entire digital management process of an asset. Satellite technologies are amazing. We can measure millimeter deformations over an entire city from 700 kilometers far away. And we don't need any kind of ground-based instrumentation. And the number of assets and areas to monitor is growing in an increasingly digitized sector. So it's not possible to monitor all these urban and non-urban areas with the traditional systems that require either ground or personnel on the field. So we are at the moment of a paradigm shift in the infrastructure sector. So, with all these sensors, we are changing the way in which we observe, we operate, and we manage our assets. So in our products, we integrate all these data sources and technologies to get more resilient, efficient, and safe infrastructures.
Thank you very much. So, quantum enzymes space. Michiel, you are the president of the European Innovation Council, and probably to some extent I could say you're the godfather of many of these new ideas and technologies. Would you like to present what you are doing with the European Innovation Council?
Well, I think the EIC is the godfather. I only started 6 months ago. That's too young to be godfather. The EIC is an instrument created by the European Union to fund startups and scale-ups. So basically to bring research to the market. So we have been very good in Europe to create research to innovation, but from innovation to the market has been more complicated. The EIC only solves one part of the problem, basically funding. So it funds ideas to come from the laboratory to a concept of a business. That's called a pathfinder, and the accelerator accelerates those ideas and gives a combination of grants and equity to startups to basically to industrialize their production, to make a pilot plant, or even in some technologies to make a full plant. So tickets from around 3 million, 2.5 grand, and up to 50 million euro funding, equity, provided together with the EIB. And that brings in private investors. So on average, for each public euro, 3 euros private capital is added. And all these three companies here represent segments that the EIC serve. Actually, I think there's even one beneficiary amongst you three, for sure. So we cover a lot of medtech, also biotech. We cover a lot of, let's say, quantum, photonics, semiconductors is a big cluster. Energy is a big cluster. And we also serve the space sector and some others.
Actually, I was part of that adventure because I was member on the board in the beginning of the EIC fund. And this brings me to what I would really like to discuss with you today. If we look at the archetypal business case, it means idea, input, talent, investment, regulation, and then, of course, market. And I'd like to hear from you for your specific business cases, which are very cutting edge and which I think can inspire a lot of young entrepreneurs as well, how you see the single market, Europe, working around your business case, what works, what could we improve, and how we could better accompany your journey, also in this very changed geopolitical situation. I don't know who wants to start.
I can go first.
Yes.
So for us, let's say the talent is all in all. So we have almost 50% of our staff are holding PhDs. So it's absolutely necessary for us that there is enough educated workforce available in Europe. And in many cases, the situation is actually good, and people can move from country to country. But like in the big picture, Europe is getting old, and let's say we should make also sure that we get the best talent from outside the European Union. So to make the immigration of the special experts as easy as possible and as smooth as possible, that is very important. Also in the educational sector, we should follow our time and let's say, we have seen, for example, now when there are CHIP Act and a lot of semiconductor industry coming back to Europe after 20, 30 years. So there are no more experts in that area. So we need to reshape our study programs so that we would be ready for the future challenges. I think next 20, 30 years we will be doing semiconductors in Europe, for example, and we better to have enough experts from all the level there to work on those big factories. So that's a different thing. And on the, well, I can continue for others, it's a big topic, but the funding side, we enjoyed a very good economical situation 4 or 5 years ago. A lot of venture capital funding available. That is not the case this year. I hope next year might be better already, but we don't see. And the funding instruments like EIC become like really crucial there, so that we can target enough funding for, let's say, the critical sectors. So even those few new rounds this year, they are almost all going to the AI. So what happens for the all other sectors in deep tech, I don't know, but companies definitely struggling their startups. So that's one big domain. And then the third one is, of course, this kind of regulatory environment where we are living at, and that has changed a lot. So especially now when there is like a geopolitical game between the US and China, and how European Union takes the role in there, and maybe new kind of politics, new kind of initiatives are needed there to protect ourselves and our benefits. So that's a bigger discussion, of course.
So talent, risk capital, early on.
Yeah.
That's what you say. And the geopolitics is... okay, Esther, how would you see that from Europe?
I think the single market and also the right to be long-term, the stability and the vision of the long term, that's probably one of the biggest gifts that we have. So that, please, let's protect that. Because that gives us the right to think long term and to also make bold moves. A very clear example, it is the ambition that Europe is putting on a path to carbon neutrality and how to protect the world that we all live. But then it's how we are moving that into practice. Here is where we can do better. And when I say we, I mean we. It's not Europe and companies. It's a we, that we have to be better on moving to the we. If I go into my little wall of biotechnology, only if we would implement the solutions that they already exist, we would eliminate 8% of the CO2 emissions. Pluff, like this. Only by implementing what's already existing. And on top, we will create jobs, we'll create wealth for Europe. Biotechnology was already contributing to 35 billion in Europe from economy. We grew 4% last year, which is above the European GDP. For every job it's created in biotechnology, 4 more jobs are created. So it's good for the planet, good for the society, good for economic growth. And the solutions, they already exist. There are already solutions that allow plastics recycling. There are already solutions that allow replacing chemicals, fertilizers. There are already solutions that enable to make plant-based food that tastes good and bring the experience for the consumers. And we are producing them, and we are enabling them. So if the will is there, the solutions are there, the jobs can be created, and yes, I agree with you, Johan, talent, it's a bottleneck, but we do have amazing talent in Europe. So it's maybe on how we distribute it more than if it's there. Why it's not happening faster? And that's the inch. I think we're facing unnecessary roadblocks. From one side, let me give you a couple of figures. One is $7 trillion that governments spend and allocate on subsidizing fossil-based solutions. That's 7% of the GDP. That's more than what we spend collectively on education, on subsidizing the past. That needs to stop. Another roadblock that we're facing, and that goes to your comment also, Johan, on the time. we're facing a regulation paradigm that is based on chemicals, on the paradigm of chemicals. When biosolutions that they already exist, they are degradable, they are found in nature, and forcing them to go to the path of the chemical channel, which is the one that it has been there since ever, it's hindered the speed of penetration. And in Europe, that's particularly painful. So I'll just give you 2 examples here. In agricultural, in Europe, to put microbes that replace fertilizers and they will lead to 50% low carbon footprint of those crops, you need 8 years to register a microbe. In US, you can do it from 2 or 3. That's time. Time
That's
is
an
cash.
argument investors.
Time is cash, and it's precious because that's hindering the time of investment. For plant-based solutions, novel proteins, again, roadblocks on the speed of the registration, which are based on forcing biodegradable solutions that they're found in nature to go through the path of tortuous regulation, harmful chemicals. So how we could, and here's what I'm saying, the we, because I think also companies, we have a responsibility to sit closer with authorities to explain how good can look like. Because it's very easy to complain and say, I don't like this. We have a responsibility here on how we're working together, how we're showing the solutions that they're available, and how we're creating a regulation that it is just for what it's needed, but it's not blocking the speed of the implementation. When we do that, we generate growth, we generate jobs, and we all live in a society that we pride and also we want to give on our generations to move ahead. So it's possible.
Okay.
Keep that long term, but remove the bureaucracy or make it a little bit easier on how we're working together.
Bureaucracy and admin burden, that's a big topic at the moment. We've actually undertaken to reduce 25% of the reporting burden. And we're also looking at digitization and implementing regulation to make it easier for companies and not repeated inputs. On the permitting time, that's a tough one. We have 2 legislations at the moment running where we are actually telling member states how long the permits have to take. That's Net Zero Industry Act and the Critical Raw Material Act. So far, they are advancing in the legislative process, but we are covering new territory. And what you say about new formats of conversation, that's also true. Because the transformation, COVID, the aggression, the Russian aggression, Ukraine, has made us really think that as the single market, as the bloc we are, the economic bloc, we have to act more quickly, and we cannot only act through regulation. So we need new formats to discuss this. And we have the alliances, which is at looking at new solutions like hydrogen, increasing supply and demand at the same time. And it's really a conversation between policymakers, country, governments, regions, towns even, and the industry, 2,000 actors. We have the Industrial Forum, which is also a type of exchange, and we have the Single Market Enforcement Task Force, SMET, which looks at barriers, and not because this is the law or not, but because it's the economy stupid. So we are setting out to remove them. These are the new formats that we actually try to develop. For that conversation.
The direction is there. The will is there. It's the speed of the change.
Which is the most important, really.
Well, I think the direction is the most important because the direction is the right one.
Yeah.
But then we have to find a way of doing it better.
Candela, from your point of view.
Well, I will say the space sector is living in a happy moment in Europe. So I guess it's thanks to this vision that you had like 20, 30 years ago of having our own navigation system, Earth observation system. So, and this innovative approach of having open data access. So like everyone can have access to these satellites, to this data, so we can all create products based on it. So I will say the space sector, when it comes to launching satellites, rockets, is already mature. We have reached at this level where we are not expecting like major innovations. Materials are better, efficiency, the propulsors, the new materials, but we are not expecting like huge innovations when it comes to satellites. And also the adoption is getting better. Scientific community, companies, we all count of satellite data. We know it can bring a lot of information. So the challenge, I guess, it comes like, so what do you do with all this information? So we have dozens of satellites in orbit. It will be 100 in 18 months. So what can we do with all this data? How we process, how we create value for the end user? Because it's okay to have data, but who can manage terabytes of data every day? So I guess the challenge for the companies here is to, with all this information, all this data, create really high-value product, really going from terabytes to megabytes. So everyone can have access to this easy-to-interpret data that support your decisions and leads to the goal of your project.
Maybe Juha, can you help Candela with your work? Or are you competing for talent here?
I don't think we are competing. We are
Yet.
Not
You're
yet.
complimentary, right?
Yeah, and more, I think in Europe we should have more let's say, the attitude of, let's say, forming common, let's say, value chain instead of seeing each other as a competitor. Since our real competition comes from US, from China, so let's say in Europe we should try to form some kind of alliances or somehow kind of together win the US competitors. So that's the...
I can say that, I mean, this is really a paradigm shift for us also as a policymaker. Let's say like 2-3 years ago, until COVID, we were looking at the regulatory framework as the enabling framework, and then it was for you to play. And we were removing barriers, and the idea was if we remove a barrier, you can play, and you will play. But, you know, it takes more, and it takes to understand the value chain. Because if on the whole value chain that we noticed with COVID, all of a sudden one element is missing, I mean, all the others, they can't work. On the car, the chips for the car industry, for example. And to have this understanding, better understanding of the value chain and bring together the partners on the value chain, this is these new formats that you also mentioned. I come from the high-level group on competitiveness, which we had yesterday in Madrid, and we actually discussed a number of these issues, how we can understand better together the value chains and how we can, you know, see stress on the value chain, but also how we can make these value chains scale up much faster, speed argument, these new solutions to decarbonize or digitize the economy. Before I give the floor to Michiel to kind of mirror what he heard and how he kind of puts it into the EIC context, are there any questions from the room you would like to ask to our panelists? For example, your feelings, are you afraid of US or China? Please, if you could say who you are and...
Good morning. My name is Guillermo Aman. I come from Spain, and my company is Ormazabal, and we produce electrical equipment for the distribution network. So it's a very traditional market, although it's now with new technologies that are involved in it. But okay, my comment and question goes in you have been talking about, you have started to talk about talent. And you said that, okay, the talent is there, so it's a matter how to distribute it or how to prepare the talent properly for those new technologies. I would like to go further. It's not a matter of talent, it's a matter of skills. If we don't have the proper skills, talent is for nothing in all those fields of new activities, new technologies that we have to develop. So don't you think that we should start preparing? There was a session devoted to skill yesterday, but don't you think that we need the proper educational schemes in order to have the proper skills ready as soon as possible in those new fields of activity? Thank you.
Who wants to react? How do you get the skills you need? Even if the skills change and require different things from people like, in particular, Candela, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we are a very young startup, but we are a spin-off of the university, so we are in contact with the students, internships, final, how you say this, final works before financing the bachelor or the final thesis. We have industrial PhD. So we are really in contact with university because I think it's the only way to keep in what's going on with the latest developments, being knowing the state of the art. But so for us, just offering, being really independent with your ideas, how to take the challenge, how are you going to deal, what are your thoughts, and you have liberty. You can try, you can get into an error, but I think this is the only way to move forward and to innovate into solving a challenge that is not clear how it can be solved. Maybe it can be solved by deep tech, but maybe there is any other technology or traditional one that can really solve it. So just keep an open mind. So we shouldn't pursue deep tech because it's deep tech. We should go there if it really solves a problem.
Can I?
Esther, how are you doing it?
So when I said the talent is there, it's been conceptually the talent is there, but then it's getting the one that you need when you need it, the one that it's what's creating the mismatch with the supply and demand. From one side, and I think we have to differentiate between what we call blue collar, so operators and the plants, from engineers. It's very different dynamics and very also different a way of fulfilling those demand needs. Because the blue collars, many times they are much more regional, and you have less mobility and capability to attract. And it's very important that you work with the local institutions, schools, governments, that you get the talent for the future. From an engineer point of view, exactly the same. Be close, be early, be part of the answer. Make sure that with interactions with the universities, the programs are set in a way that STEM is there, it's relevant, and also that you develop the leaders of the future. It is not only about knowing about engineering or understanding a P&L. It is about leading in a broad environment, inclusive environment. So work more on the soft skills. And then don't underestimate the responsibility you have as a company to develop that panel. Yeah. One thing that it's changing is the dynamics of the relationship between company and employee. It is not for life anymore. It is beautiful when it lasts. It needs to be fulfilling every day. Companies need to embrace the responsibility, not only to give a job, but to give a purpose, to give a place that employees feel that they belong, to give a place that your values and what you're doing, there is a very strong connection among the two of them. And then to embrace that maybe it's going to be beautiful only for 5 years, and then they will move somewhere else, and maybe they will come back. So when you develop the training, you have to understand and put it in the mindset that this is not an employee you may be going to have for the next 25 years, which is the way it used to be in the past. So summarizing many things that I said, work with the schools and with the universities, be part of defining what is needed, embrace the link between purpose, values, and job. It's not only about job, it is also about fulfillingness. And then train the skill sets that develop in alignment of the dynamics of the world that we live. There is a component from the EU and the single market which makes it a little bit difficult to attract employees, which is the pension plans and retirement. That yes, you have mobility at a certain age, but after a certain age, it makes much harder. Because although you can hire employees, it's much harder to move when your pensions and all your benefits from your life will not be scalable from one country to the other. So maybe that will be a wish to bring here on how we can increase the mobility and what it's legally possible, but then from a practical point of view, it's starting to become a bottleneck.
That's a very good point. I mean, free movement of workers is one of the core for freedom of the single market, which is, because it's a freedom project, and that's why I have to say in brackets, I'm so passionate about where I work, because there's a lot of purpose. I've worked for a long time now with my same employer, the European Commission, but there's a lot of purpose in creating that Europe, that highly competitive single market economy, as our treaty, our constitution says. When it comes to the free movement of workers, social rights, portability of pensions has been on our agenda for a long time. Overall, our policy push in all these areas is to make it as easy as possible for the citizen or the person concerned and push the difficult stuff into a joint back office between the member states, where they can then discuss and find the solution. The main tool for this is the single digital gateway, which will come on stream on 8th of December, which will focus on 12 administrative procedures, where it's a one-stop shop, once only principle for the company or the citizen, and the rest is back office between the member states. So this is the new future of actually also managing the single market and enabling these 4 freedoms. And I want to add one point on, it's not the company only themselves who have to work on the talent, but in Europe, which is pretty unique compared to the other continents, we have social dialogue. And building on this social dialogue between employers and workers, we've developed a concept called Pact for Skills. We have, I think, 18 of those, which is a conversation between employers in a given value chain and workers in a given value chain. What are the skills of the future? Where do we stand? How do we get there? How do we get the financing? And so there's a plan that gives perspective, again, the long view to the people concerned, and that's working quite well in a number of areas. I mean, automotive, it's the most obvious one. You know, how do you go from combustion engine to battery? That means a lot of changes for a lot of people, and that you have to manage in a good way. Maybe I give the floor to Michiel to reflect on what he heard so far.
Thank you. I'm going to reflect on the single market. I'm also one of the childs of it, born in the UK in the 1960s, living in Belgium and Netherlands, now Belgium again. The single market for the EIC is 3 things. Single movement of people. What I see that the founders in the EIC and the accelerator are really kids of Erasmus. They studied abroad, they found friends, they create a company, and I see a lot of multinational teams. So that works well. But that's conditioned to 2 things. One is that countries keep up their English-speaking education, because that's essential to create this mobility. And especially my country is a troublesome one. So if I say that here, I exhort the Netherlands to keep up its English-speaking education. The second one is a barrier, is, let's say, the position of the founder. The tax regime for founders is very different amongst EU countries, and there are 5 or 6 countries that are highly attractive, and we see the holdings of our accelerator beneficiaries moving to those countries. So some of us would like a Delaware status, and the US is not a single market. Some of the EIC members would say something, we need a Delaware status, but maybe we need for accelerators something, accelerating companies, startups, scale-ups, something of a Società Europea, but for starters. So that's one thing. Second one is the free movement of capital. I think the EIC is a huge experiment, because by creating a capital pot of around 12 billion euros, we mobilize private capital, and one of our objectives is also to create a single market for venture capital. And that's essential because some countries have ample capital, Luxembourg the best, Netherlands quite well, Germany okay, France okay, but Portugal, Bulgaria, even Ireland, very difficult to find local capital. So a startup in Portugal, for example, needs an investor from another country. So we have to create the single market for capital. And I think the EIC, EIB, EIF, the whole family will be able to create that together. And it may need some deregulation, but that's something we will look at. The third one, of course, the most classic one, the free movement of goods. That's very different. Some markets are highly, let's say the single market works very well. Think of automotive parts, automotive, there's really a single market that works well. There's one market, the biggest beneficiary of EIC funding goes to the medical sector. And the medical sector is to some part outside of the EU regulation. We still have 27 reimbursement systems, 27 recognition systems of medical professions. So that's where we have the biggest barriers, and also barriers in terms of medical devices, where Europe is cheaper to get a permit than the US, but takes longer. So we have areas where it's more important. And of course, the strategic autonomy will create a level playing field amongst the 27 members of the EU, but might create barriers for trading with other countries. So that's something to be cautious about how that will work out. It's interesting that as an EIC we have something to say about regulations that startups face, but only if we are requested by the Commission to give an advice on that. So thank you for having asked me the question.
Very good. Honestly, I mean, I come from finance from my previous job. I think we have to argue that capital market union is industrial policy.
Yeah.
Is industrial policy. Having a capital market union, mobilizing all that these savings in the EU to actually go into investing in companies, that's what capital market union should do and should bring us. And with InvestEU, our big guarantee, we tried to have some models. We had a successful model in Denmark with the public bank there to actually mobilize pension fund money. Because these long-term investors, they don't want to take risk. And what we're talking here is finding solutions for a decarbonized economy. And by definition, these solutions are new. So by definition, these solutions do they work? So they're risky, and then the investor says, too risky for me. Can somebody please de-risk? So the whole debate also from the industry side has shifted and around InvestEU about the de-risking rather than just throwing capital, looking at the risk really. You want to? No?
Yes, yeah, just an important point. I mean, the key challenges is to having a capital market is to shift the way we have savings and pensions. Because now we invest, all us here and everyone around, our savings in houses, in real estate, in bricks, which are not decarbonized. And the challenge is to invest in the jobs of the future. Because it's only the jobs of the future that will pay the pensions. Bricks don't pay pension.
But that's why companies like yours, who manage to actually grow in the market, can convince investors. Every example where you collect money and then scale, you are an example for everyone else that risk-taking is worth it, and therefore to see how our kind of de-risking possibilities that we have with the Innovation Fund, with InvestEU, with some of our grant policies, how that helps you is, I mean, to show how that can work together will make Europe an attractive place to invest. I want to come to another little round on the Virginia Woolf thing, are you afraid of? How do you see China and US in your business model setup? Maybe we start with Esther.
With me?
Yeah.
So I see that in terms of an investment point of view, they're winning relative to Europe. I'm not saying I like that. I'm saying that's the reality. In US, you're facing a labor market which is much more movable. B, a regulation which accelerates the speed of the implementation. So then it's more demand because the time is shorter. So you can move faster. The return of the investment is faster. And then on top, it's coupled with Inflation Reduction Act, and that's 24 billion investment subsidies. I'm not going to discuss if that's the right way or not, as you so nicely said. I don't know if it's right or wrong. But the truth is, you invest there, you get immediately subsidies, immediately tax incentives, you have labor, and you have demand. It's very difficult for companies to justify investing in Europe relative to US when you have more demand there and you have also all the environment. So Europe needs to catch up and not change the direction, please. We love that long-term direction. It's the right one, I believe, but it needs to catch up on the speed. I love what Ursula von der Leyen said a couple of weeks ago, and actually I was in a session with her that I thank her. We need to make it easier to work in Europe. Yes, because we're losing. We're losing relative to US, we're losing relative to China. And then we cannot lose again. I mean, we lost the solar wave, we lost the IT wave. We have to move into the next wave of investment because we have everything that you need. You have the talent, you have the companies, you have the technology, you have the vision. We just have to find a way on how to make it work. But we're not winning at this moment. I'm maybe I'm making the poo-poo message here, but I don't feel we're winning. I think that we are behind, despite maybe doing it on the eventually long-term right, and that needs an injection of energy into the system to shift the way that we're working, to remove the roadblocks that hinder the speed, and then go back on where Europe deserves to be.
Okay, we're not yet winning. I interpret your message like this.
We can, but we're not.
Candela and you, what's your views here?
I will say as a software company, I mean, and especially in the satellite radar technologies, I cannot say anything about US or China because my competitors are Europeans. So we are fostering each other innovation, we are trying to understand the client better, and we are trying to improve our product to be the best. But I will say when it comes to the downstreaming sector, Europe is really, really strong. So I compete with other European companies. So I cannot say much about US or China because in this case it doesn't apply to our business.
It's a message as well. You know, you don't worry about them. Juho.
Yeah. So we are working in a very highly regulated sector. Let's say US is leading this regulation, and there are a lot of restrictions on our business. So like our exports to China, us to use the Chinese employees, even in the company deemed export controls applied there. So there's a lot of there, and US is clearly leading this geopolitical game, which is now getting really polarized, and they want to keep their leadership position, and they are restricting the export to China since they believe that China would rise, and they are making bilateral diplomatic relationship between countries. So with 12 countries, they have made this relationship. We are from Finland, and we have this kind of statement with US in exporting quantum technology between the countries, and so we can do business in US. But of course, we see, or we have followed this now for 5 years, and we have seen more and more of these kind of restrictions coming. So that's why we of course try to get benefit from US as much as possible, but at the same time we would like to see the Europe taking, let's say, stronger stance there, and like a new initiative. Whereas in US they're afraid of this technology, it very easily goes to defense security domain and get restricted. But here in Europe, since we have a lot of quantum technology in many countries, we could be, let's say, more like opening that for larger society, for wide availability, and taking, let's say, the benefits of that for larger society, and like we could do it European way, and I really trust on that we can make it, and we are pushing forward that very strongly.
Yes, we can as well. I see a couple of comments. I think we covered, how we can get quicker. We talked about talent. Next policy move. Maybe let's move to my last question to you. A one-sentence answer. In 10 years, in one sentence, where do you see your company?
Well, we have a few billion of revenue. We have in Europe, we have followed the way of Airbus. So we have one big, strong European quantum company merged together, and then we are competing strongly with the US, Chinese players.
Do you have a working title for that company?
Quantum Airbus.
Quantum Airbus. Okay, good. Esther.
We will continue to be a leading biotech company, even bigger, even bolder. It's not only how I wish and how we are going to be seen as the company that I have the privilege to work. I would like to see that in 10 years from now, biosolutions are a stronger component of our lives, that we replace even more fossil-based alternatives, enabling exactly the same consumer needs, or even better, with healthier solutions, with solutions also healthier for the planet, competitive, that then we're going to be part of that. Hopefully the leading one also, but I wish for a place where we move from the dependency of fossil-based, not completely, but less than what it is today. That's what I'm very confident it's going to be 10 years from now.
Very good. And Candela?
For us, as the technology is already mature, I will say yes, development of new large language models, AI, that will help us to really get the value and to develop. So we will go from being a deep tech company to a commodity. So we are in this paradigm shift that this new technology, satellite data, will be really integrated into the sector, and we will be another source of information of high value. So I guess we will go from deep tech to commodity within 10 years.
Okay.
I've never seen somebody so proud of being, I'm going to be a commodity company in the future, but it's so beautiful the way you say it. Yeah.
Michiel, where would you see the ecosystem the innovation ecosystems in 10 years from here?
I have a double sentence. The first one is the startup world should help to decarbonize the economy and to help to achieve the Green Deal. And the second one is currently we have only 2 leading positions in the 40 most important technologies in the world. That would need to be 10 in 10 years' time. 10 first positions of the 40 essential technologies.
Cool.
And I hope those
have
that
already
help the Green
3
Deal.
here?
Sorry?
You have already 3 here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Those 3 are winnable.
Thank you very much. Big applause for our panel. Thank you very much for being here.